How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Podcast Unbroken. I'm Roderick. This is Huddy McNugget. And we got my coach here today, Coach George. How do you say your last name? Briones?
It's Briones.
Briones.
It gets mixed up all the time.
Yeah. I thought it was Briones. Whatever. It's pretty cool. So, we're just going to jump right into it instead of talking about dumb shit. Who are you? What's your name?
First off, my first question, do I look into the camera when I'm talking, or do I look at you guys?
Just talk to us. Yeah. You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. I'm just trying to figure out what we need to do.
Yeah.
So my name is George Briones. I've been doing fitness and health and wellness probably my whole life. I guess you can say, I've always been athletic and always been in sports since I grew up. I wasn't your normal traditional kid growing up. I played sports all through elementary, middle school, high school, played club sports. But academically wise, I wasn't the smartest kid in school. And that kind of was something that, how do I balance those two? And it was one of those things where it was kind of like I need to join the military in terms of just I need to grow up. There was some talk about it in previous podcasts and stuff, and I got really big into drugs from the age of like 14 all the way up until I left the boot camp. And that there was one of those things where it was just my environment that I put myself in kind of caused me to kind of like spiral down a hole and get me out of fitness and all those other things. So, trying to get back into a normal lifestyle of not living in an environment of drugs and just hustling 24/7 was more kind of like, what am I going to do to set my life up, right? Or at least get me out of this hole at that time and moment, and that was the military. So I joined the military right after high school. I graduated, and 2 weeks later, I'm in the boot camp.
No way.
Yeah.
Where did you live?
I lived in Texas, so I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And that was one of those things that kind of just was like, yeah, let's just go to boot camp and see what happens and go from there.
Yeah.
Sounds
like my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was the same way. Lived in Brownsville, Texas. Went to the recruiter, and then I think it was Thursday, and then left for boot camp on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen nowadays. Nowadays, they're like 6 months, a year later.
Well, especially with what I do now as a coach who looks at athletes from multiple different viewpoints in terms of like health and wellness, athleticism, if they're competing or whatever else, we got guys now who come to us, because I work for Soflete as well, if anybody's into Soflete. We're a human performance company looking to enable not just a tactical athlete, but everyday athletes.
Right.
So, I'm the head of director and training and programming there, so I write majority of the programming. We have another, who's also one of the owners, and he helps coach and then program as well.
Right.
But most ideas come through them, or we come up with them, and I'm the one putting them on paper. And it's the same thing going back to the idea of, when we look at joining the military nowadays, it takes 6 months for you to go because everyone's either trying to go special operations or they're just trying to be physically fit. And unfortunately, the time period that we are in now, most kids that go into recruiting offices are not physically fit at all, or not even psychologically fit can't do a pull-up, or not even ready to handle what hardships are of going into the military. And that is just kind of where society has led us to today. But in the past, when I joined the military, it was kind of one of those things where I joined the military and you're in a debt program right away, and you're at making debt, and you're still doing that now, but it was one of those things where that's all we knew, right? Like, cool, like you're in Texas, like you're either going to college, or you're staying in Texas, not doing much, or you're joining the military. That's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah, for real.
And I didn't want to get stuck in that spiral of staying back home and falling into that spiral, just doing the same thing over and over again. And my personality, everyone who knows me and who will watch this and knows that I'm kind of one of those guys that I hate being stuck in a box. Like, you can't put me in a box. You put me in a box, all hell breaks loose. Whereas kind of led me today now, I've been a special operations guy in the military. I've been an instructor at the schoolhouse with basic reconnaissance course type stuff for students. I've trained beginning athletes in CrossFit to all the way to the games level in CrossFit. And
we're close.
But what I've learned through this whole process of looking at that of like, okay, cool, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played all the things in sports when I was in high school, middle school, and elementary, even club versions. And then getting into trouble and getting into that environment and having to pull myself out, going through the military, doing those experiences, or deploying multiple times, And when we deployed, it wasn't your normal deployments. Like, I was very lucky, and I'm say lucky, but grateful to be able to be one of the part of that, that 1% to 2% that got to see combat. Right? Like, that was something in 2010, like 2010, 11, 9, like that time period in Afghanistan was very kinetic. So I got to experience those things as well, and I got to really utilize like how your fitness is gonna determine how you operate and how you work as a special operations guy, especially on deployments. And it was one of those things, and it kind of just forwarded me through to where I'm at today in terms of like looking at fitness. And when I say fitness, I'm not talking about CrossFit, because I feel like that's what everyone gets confused on. It's like, oh, fitness, it's not just CrossFit. Fitness could be, you know, a 60-year-old woman who wants to get off the couch and go for a walk for 30 minutes. That's her fitness regimen.
Yeah.
You know, compared to you who's training a certain way.
Yeah.
You know,
crazy motherfuckers running 100 miles.
yeah, or like my fitness endeavors is chasing ultra marathons, right? But you know, I've played and I've been the tactical athlete, I've been the CrossFit athlete, I've been the weightlifter, and now I'm being the endurance athlete, and just really controlling and learning how to make everything come full circle, because at the end of the day, that's what you need to do, right? Like, you can't be a competitive athlete until you're 70 years old.
Right.
Let's just be real here. You can be a competitive athlete for a good majority of your life if you approach it in the right way, and going back full circle of like, it's just a long-term approach to it. So when you go like, hey, what have you been doing? I've been living fitness for my whole life.
Right.
You know, I'm an amateur to all of it, and the reason why is because an amateur is someone who loves that sport or loves doing what they're doing. And people confuse amateur, and in the English definition, amateur is someone who's new to something, right? But in foreign countries, amateur is the love of. You know, and I think that's a beautiful thing in terms of looking at how we look at fitness and how we can look at durability and longevity to someone's life. Because it's a 360-degree circle, and that's a thing that a lot of people miss when we look at the sport of fitness, weightlifting specifically, and I even see it in the ultra endurance world too. People get so caught up in just that and forget about everything else around it, and that's something that, you know, I guess you can say I've really been on lately, of like really trying to figure out why is that. Right, like so.
Why this? This is a really off-topic question though. Did you have tattoos before you joined the military?
Yes, I had tattoos,
but not all. Like,
not all my hands.
No.
No. So like for people wondering like, hey, like, can you get in the military now? I have tattoos. I'm not too sure how that works, but that time period, you couldn't have anything that showed.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of where they went, and luckily I had my first tattoo. Like my best friend Tony did it. He has his own tattoo shop in Texas, and he travels and does stuff. Been doing it for like over 17 years, and he did this one in his bedroom. I remember on a futon at the age of like 15, 16 years old, and my dad had just gotten. I just found out my dad had kidney failure.
Oh wow!
So it was kind of one of those things where like, all right, cool. So I got this tattoo, and then I got another tattoo, and by the time I knew it, my legs were covered. You know, because that's all I could do, especially for school.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that. You know, so kind of like that. And then as I joined the military and started moving through it, I started getting tattoos, and by the time I was out, I had 2 sleeves. My hands were done except for the top of my hands and my knuckles, and then I've led from there.
So you had your hands tattooed?
I had my sides of my hands. Like I had so right here it says Forever Grateful. I got that from my grandfather when he passed away.
Forever Grateful.
Yeah. Same thing, yeah. And then I have
best friends?
Yeah, best friends. We go wrestle. And then I have a knife on my left hand, and this is my shooting hand because I shoot left-handed.
Okay.
And then I have a feather on my right hand, which is my finesse hand. Which is like my writing hand. So it's kind of just, every tattoo I have on my body has a meaning to it. It's not just like, hey, you know, like,
that's cool.
Yeah, some people would do that compared to like a lot of us. There's a reason why we have the tattoos on us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
That's awesome. All right, cool. So let's kind of go into how did you get involved with Softfleet?
Yeah.
And then your experience from programming. I've asked you this before, like, so do you have any certifications for programming? Is it just life that you program? Because I mean, honestly, your approach to programming, in my experience, I enjoy it. It's awesome. Some days it's not cool, but you know, most days it's pretty cool.
So first question, how did I get involved with Softfleet? Well, the owner of Softfleet, back in 2014, towards the back, and I just got out of the military, and I actually was transitioning, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Did I want to go back home and work for a 3-letter agency and make a really good figure, and working to help the military do some stuff on that side? Or did I want to stay back here in California and like chase my passion of running my own like company of like, in that time period in 2014, and before that I created a company called GB3 Athletics.
Right.
And that was when I kind of started building my name in terms of the whole world of fitness. And that time period I was only focused on CrossFit because that's all I was doing.
Right.
with myself as a tactical athlete. And there was a lot of endurance work as an instructor. I was running, rucking, swimming all the time. So the endurance work was there, and then the CrossFit was there. So we kind of matched in between. But when I started transitioning out, and leaving, between that transition of like what I really wanted to do, it was one of those things where it was really hard to figure out what I wanted to do. And luckily I've been mentored by some really good coaches, and this kind of blends your whole question to both those questions. And I was really fortunate to work with a guy named Jason Lavoie, who used to own Offshore CrossFit. He's no longer with him, I don't think. But he introduced me to Coach Bergner. And I used to sit and watch Jason coach when I was a young pump back in 2010, you know, or at like 11 when I just got back. I've only been doing this for 10 years, you know.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
30.
Yeah. So got to introduce myself and meet Coach Bergner, and you know, I got really close to him over time. And at that time period, I've known him already for 4 years. And he told me, he's like, look, man, you're only 26 right now. He's like, you have 4 more years to chase your passion. At the age of 30, your goal should be trying to focus on security from your family and whatever else. Really good advice, right? Like,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I mean, I had 2 kids at the time. Like, I went from making a really good amount of money in the military to now coming to making only $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000. You know how it is, like just coaching CrossFit and running right programs. And my buddy Brent was like, hey, dude, me and my buddy and a couple other guys want to start this company, and this is the way we want to approach it. We want to, you know, there's so much military programming out there right now, but it's just crushing people and breaking people because
instead of
helping them, because the mindset at that time period
to crush people
was let's just crush people, right? That was a time period where everyone thought volume intensity was the only way to get better. And unfortunately, like, is that true to a point? Yes, but it doesn't need to be the foundation. It needs to be the pinnacle, and we need to be pulling from it at times, not using it the whole time, right?
We actually have a friend who was training to go to Buds, and then he hurt himself doing that training, then he couldn't go.
Yeah, exactly, right? And one thing we say at Softly all the time is that your training program leading into selection shouldn't be selection. It should prepare you for selection.
Yeah, that's smart.
And that's the way. So Brent was like, hey, this is the goal. We're going to go and start putting out free programming on Instagram and whatever else. I just want you to be the West Coast coach. So whenever people are out there following the programming, they got questions, they have your gym to come to. Because at the time period too, I was in a transition of getting out of the military. Now Coach B telling me this. Me now being like, all right, cool, I'm going to go coach full-time, start GB3, or GB3 Athletics was already going, and he was like, hey man, we'll bring you on as a West Coast coach, just help out when I need you, whatever else, we're still going to be posting things. So that's kind of what I did in 2015 when the company first started. And as time kind of went on, I developed, you know, opened my own gym, had my own athletes going from youth level all the way up to the senior level in nationals for weightlifting. CrossFit wise, you know, I've had some really good regional level CrossFitters. I've helped get a team to the games. Unfortunately, they popped on one of the guys on the team popped on a drug test, and we didn't get to make it to go.
I wonder who that was.
You know, and that's water under the bridge. But like those ideas and those things coming full circle, you know, at that time period and all that change and stuff was really cool, and it had like really drawn me to really wanting to chase my passion in terms of that, right? Like those were the ideas behind it all, and we ended up, you know, bring me on full time. And it was really cool to come on full time because I started writing blogs for the company. I started helping out whenever we ran seminars. We ran a Softly weightlifting seminar. We ran, you know, we've done multiple different seminars within that first year. We finally went from owning our own, like we went from using Trainer Heroic as an app of what our programs were to now having our own app to this day to where, you know, putting out some of the best programming for tactical athletes and the everyday human being.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we've only been around for less than, you know, 2015 when we started. We're not even 5 years into this thing. It's only
I'm checking your years on.
Yeah, right. It's like, damn, it's been a while. But like the cool thing about that is because of the approach that we have been able to take in terms of teaching people to slow down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what it is. So, you know, at that time period, you know, we are all on the same page to really come onto the company for Softly, and that was awesome. And then 2017, like I said, through those years, you know, I've done some really good things with athletes. I had my own gym, opened the gym with a high number of members. With, you know, when we first opened the doors, the gym was jamming. Personal life wasn't the greatest at the time period or whatever else, but my professional life was going because that's all I was focused on, right? I decided to sell my gym, and when I sold my gym, I ended up being offered a full-time spot with Softly.
Perfect transition.
Which was a perfect transition, you know, and I felt like it was one of those things where I earned that position to transfer over because I've been grinding for the past 4 years, owning my own gym, internships, and during that time period, you know, from 2014 all the way until I came on full-time with them, you know, even before that, I was mentoring and learning through coaches like Coach Waxman, Ursula from Texas Barbell, you know, Max Ayeta, Chad Wesley Smith, Quinn Hynock, like Ryan Brown, like all these big time, like all these coaches that understood movement, understood fitness, understood strength, and understood all these things, put me in a very good spot to learn how to look at that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it actually came down to more of trial and error. I put myself in positions to learn. You know, like I've been a tactical athlete. I know what it feels like to be a tactical athlete, and I know what it feels like to operate at a high stress environment when you're in gunfights for 90% of your deployment, and still be able to stay fit and come back from that transition and learn how to take yourself from this high aggressive tactical athlete who lives in a high stress environment to now living, we like to call it like our war hippie style now, right? Like if you would have seen me a month ago, I would have had full beard and long hair. I got out of that mindset and went back to more of a professional look, you know, and just something, but a lot of it came down to just learning how to transition from being so aggressive to understanding how to slow down and actually learn what empathy and compassion was again in terms of coaching and fitness. Because if you would have came to me in 2015, you wanted CrossFit, I wouldn't tell you to do anything else but CrossFit. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense now? Like, yeah. So, and I would have weightlifters come to me like, I want to CrossFit. You can't CrossFit, you can just weightlift. That's your sport, that's what you do. Or you're a tactical athlete, you shouldn't be CrossFit, you shouldn't be weightlifting. And now it's kind of one of those things where fitness is fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why can't you do it all of it? One's going to complement the other. Maybe we just learn how to balance them throughout the year now, right? Yeah. The same idea, and I learned that by looking at as a strength conditioning coach. When you look at a football player, they have an in-season, off-season, they have a preseason, they have transition periods, they have in-season, like all those things, right? You look at that, it's like, well, why can't we cater that to an everyday human being?
Right.
Right. So my traditional way of internships and coaching and programming, you know, has been a lot of trial and error, has been a lot of experience in sitting with people and learning from them, my head in books and reading naturally, you know, taking online courses with Training Think Tank, Power Athlete, you know, Joel Jamieson of 8 weeks in Bioforce Conditioning, you know, internships with coaches, you know, like Chad Wesley Smith, Max Ayeta, you know, Waxman. Being around those kinds of coaches, like Don Rico, I mean, you know, of Delta Weightlifting, like we've all worked together, we've been around together, we've all just gone our different paths, and, you know, it's kind of one of those cool things to be able to see and look back. I mean, like I have a foundation of all of that, and now what I'm adding on top of that is all this endurance stuff that I'm learning, because I'll tell you what, I'm probably the healthiest I've been since I've started focusing more on aerobic type training.
Yeah.
And that's the problem what a lot of people forget is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And everyone believes that, oh, CrossFit's aerobic, and realistically it's not. It's an anaerobic sport, or an anaerobic hobby, however you want to fucking look at it, right? It's an anaerobic style of training. It's a high intensity training session.
Yeah.
Most individuals who go in there are usually anaerobically deficient. What does that mean? That means that they don't know how to manage their heart rate to utilize oxygen. So the first thing they do is become anaerobic right away. Why are we just, you know, so it's kind of one of those things where there needs to be a full 360 approach to getting an athlete to move better, to understand that. And, you know, I believe that doesn't just come from taking your CSCS, taking your CrossFit level 1 or taking your level 2 for weightlifting or doing all these things. Like I can name all my certifications that I've taken, right? And I can show you my resume. But you put me against someone who has a CSCS or who's done less than me but has the same, they're not going to have the same knowledge as I do.
Right.
Because they don't have the experience to it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the way I look at it, right? Is like, that's why I always say never be a studio gangster.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things, right? Like anybody can be a studio gangster until it's time to do like legit stuff, you know?
And that's gangster shit.
Exactly, right? Like, and that's something, the same thing, and I just look at that in life. Right? Like, why do I want to go run 100 miles? Well, I want to see what it's like to run 100 miles.
Yeah. And you don't want to talk about it, you want to be about it.
Yeah, right? Like, those kinds of things. So it's kind of led me to that whole, like, your two-part questions, what got me into Softly. That was a huge piece of why it got me into Softly, was because we were all on the same page, and we still are to this day. I mean, everyone in that company understands that our goal is to help the next athlete or the next human being be a better version of them. How do we do that? Well, we have our own nutrition programming. We have our own nutrition on our app. In our own app, we have a nutrition, like, full-on, simple. You can follow it, breaks the macros down, it evolves with you because you go in there and adjust things. Brooke West, our registered dietitian for the company, is a fucking magician. She understands what she's doing. It's unbelievable. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do, and you can head over to train.softly.com, and you can download the app and get a 7-day free trial and check out what we have. But what's cool about the performance side of things is, as we've evolved as a company, we no longer are just focusing on two things. What we used to start with was strength and stamina teams. Mm-hmm. And the strength teams was 60 to 40%, 60%, 70% focus on strength, 30 to 40% focus on stamina and endurance stuff, right? And then we had the stamina team was vice versa, 60 to 70% focus on energy system development and aerobic work, and the other 30 to 40% was strength work. And the reason why we did that was because we believe that concurrent training is a thing that most athletes need, especially in that level of tactical fitness. But what we at that time period we didn't realize, and at least for me, was this is actually a way we can look at the everyday athlete too. Why can't the everyday athlete live this 360 degree of fitness, right? And I'll use and that led us to developing, having a weightlifting team, having a competitive fitness team, having a mountain athlete team on there. So hey, this team here is for athletes who like to go out and hunt, who like to do adventures with packs on their back. We created a Soflete women's team that's just for that. And we also developed a basic team where if you haven't trained for 3 to 6 months, we have programs on that you can follow to get you ready to get into the Soflete programming. And then, which has created My Baby, which you've been a test of, and a lot of my athletes, and even people following that program, is the Apex team. And the Apex team is a concurrent training of strength and endurance. And that has led me to really evolving this whole fitness and living life and still being able to train, right? Like I just got done running 100 miles last Friday, and I took 4 days off, 5 days off, and it's been a slow process back, but I've been swimming, I've been in the gym doing strength training, I've been rock climbing, I've been bike riding, whatever else. But if I was just CrossFitting, I couldn't do any of those things. Right. If I was just weightlifting, I couldn't do all those things. If I was just a runner, I couldn't do all those things. So being able to dab my hands in multiple different things has allowed me to evolve myself to enjoy fitness. And bringing that full circle, we've been able to add some of those things that we've learned, and I've learned too, into the programming. So, movement work, you see it all the time now. Like you said, you see my programming. There's some days where it's shitty, it's boring.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's just foundation work. And that's going to lead us to doing something better. Yep. And then there's days where I'll drop the hammer on it. Like when we were peaking for Granite Games, right? There was 3 weeks in there where I slammed you hard, and then we had 2 weeks of taper into it and performed really well, right? We took fourth.
There's only because we're experienced the damn worm.
And that was, and exactly,
that
right?
Fucking worm,
like,
man.
And like that is, and we can say the worm, we could have been like, hey, we could have done more like, shadowing and visualization work on it, and I could take some blame for not being more in tune to being like what you guys are doing or whatever else. Like there's a whole bunch of excuses out there. It is what it is. You guys performed super well. You came out healthy. You weren't broken. You had some lingering injuries going in. You came out. We're fixing them now. But that's part of fitness.
Right.
But the problem that we see with a lot of individuals who compete at that level, guess what they're doing right now?
Dying.
They're still competing super hard after they just put in
they're crazy.
4 days of hard work for 4 days straight, right? And some of the athletes who are smart or whatever else are taking their time and finally easing back into intensity.
It started back this week.
Yeah, just like you just started back this week, right? So it's kind of those ideas of really managing that effort of when competition is and when competition isn't. Now take myself, for example. I just got done running 100 miles and I trained from January all the way to the race. And now I have the next 12 weeks off, and I call it my base camp period, where I'm just enjoying fitness before I get back into legit training for running again. And I'm taking this opportunity for these next 12 weeks for not doing my sport, but to cater to strengthening my sport.
Yeah.
So it's the same idea that I take with athletes at the same time. All right, cool. We're not going to be in a position to where we're training for a specific goal or sport that time period. Well, then guess what happens? This can come down, and now I can mitigate and manage other things that are going to go ahead and help rise this. Yeah. But the problem, though, is it takes time. It does take time, right? Like you said, like some days you're like, oh, it's fun. Some days you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? This doesn't make sense, or whatever else. And realistically, like sometimes, like you look at my programming, it's not complete. It's not your normal type programming compared to a lot of other people's programming. But the methods and the principles and all that stuff still in it.
All ties in.
It still ties in. I'm just being creative. And who said this the best? I forgot who said this. Man, I forgot who said it, but it was perfect because it was in the terms of looking at, like, one thing in the military we use left and right lateral limits, right? You got to stay within your left and right lateral limits is going to keep you moving forward. And the way I look at that is I take these principles that I've learned, and there's left and right lateral limits within these principles. And the way I look at that is it's an objective, right? Your goal is to get to here. Well, what's the picture that's going to get me there, right? What is the path that's going to get me there? And I look at it like art. Right, I have this white canvas, this is the goal, these are athletic attributes that we need to get, these are your weaknesses, these are your strengths, this is what we need to work on. Well, every single stroke of my paintbrush, every type of paintbrush, every type of color, every time I blend things in, it's creating this picture to lead us to this objective. And guess what? There's multiple pictures in an athlete's fucking life, right? For instance, we just got done creating a picture for Granite Games. Mm-hmm. Boom. Picture came out great. Boom. Yeah. Now, we're creating a picture to fix some imbalances and fix some weaknesses and actually get you to continue moving forward, right? Like that's what we're doing. And once that picture's done, we'll hang it up, look at it, and then all of a sudden, by the time you know it, I have this mosaic of just multiple different pictures that create this bigger picture of what you're looking for.
Right.
And that's the cool part about this whole idea of programming when I look at the athlete and like the way I create these left and right lateral limits of things. And again, like everyone learns differently and everyone takes in the information they learn differently, and it all comes out unique. So we're not recreating anything new, we're just taking other ideas and making them our own. And that's what I've done with programming for myself and for athletes who I train and coach, and that's what I do for athletes in Soflete, right, when we program that way. You know, and there are times where it's kind of like, man, you need to reel it back a little bit, buddy, like, or hey, that wasn't enough. It's like, okay, cool, like you're right, like that wasn't, right? But at the same time, everything that I give my athletes is something I haven't done. It's something I've done also. Mm-hmm. So I know what it feels like, right? Like when I train, it's not just because I like to train for fitness, it's training because it gives me new ideas to help athletes out and to continue creating content and creating programs and putting myself into different places. Those kinds of things.
Okay. So now, kind of going back a bit, it's like what you were saying about how most CrossFitters think to get better CrossFit, you do more CrossFit. So it's like literally every single day, 10 to 15 minute AMRAPs, crush yourself, lift heavy, Olympic
like
lifts. So like, it sounds like a lot of programs you've done in the past.
Yeah.
Which one thing, it's like I've kind of started experimenting with like doing my own thing and focusing on my weaknesses and like, okay, I want to do longer endurance pieces, which I've seen from his program. So one of the things I noticed when he first started working with you is like, okay, 50 minutes or 60 minutes of just fucking move, certain heart rate, like it's like building more of that aerobic base, which you also said CrossFit mostly are like all anaerobic, especially from the get-go. So why is it beneficial for him to work on his aerobic capacity other than just like, oh, if Granite Gains programs with 17K row, yeah, then obviously it's good to have a good aerobic base, but then why else is it beneficial to build off of that?
Before you answer, I want everybody to remember if you did your CrossFit level 1, the very bottom of your triangle, your pyramid, is conditioning.
It's true.
Well, is it nutrition? Nutrition and conditioning.
Nutrition.
Yeah.
It's nutrition.
Eat fucking hoagie, dude. Burgers. Having a good aerobic base.
CrossFitters eat burritos all fucking day. Like, I burned it off.
Well, so that's the great question you asked, and I like that question because the word I'm going to use here is recoverability. Mm-hmm. The more aerobic we are, the faster we can recover. And why is that? Well, the more aerobic we are, the more oxygen we get into our system, which now we increase blood volume, which now increases overall recoverability for the athlete, right? For instance, he got done, and you've done some of this programming too, and like you're pretty an aerobic dude. I've seen you move and everything else. You're an aerobic dude also. Like you have an aerobic base to you.
I try to.
You try to, right? But it's better than some athletes. Mm-hmm. And what you've noticed is you're able to handle more work the more aerobic you are. Mm. Does that make sense, right? The more aerobic you are, the more stress you can handle, right? And that actually transfers to outside life. So the 4 things I like to look at is, what does aerobic work do for me? It provides recoverability, it provides transferability, it provides longevity, it provides sustainability, and it provides durability. It provides those 5 things for me. And I can continue going on what else it provides. But when I look at all these things and how it provides that, well, longevity, I'm looking at, well, how does that tie to recoverability? Well, if I can recover faster, it promotes longevity, right? Well, if I'm recovering faster, it also promotes sustainability, right? Oh, if I'm recovering faster, I'm able to have longevity, what does that do to me? Well, I'm creating durability. Mm-hmm. Well, what about this transferability? Well, now I'm able to do everything and anything that I want to do, right? Like, just because I ran 100 miles doesn't mean I can just run 100 miles. I can go snatch, clean and jerk, bike, ride, swim, I can do CrossFit workout with you guys right now.
You can be a functioning human being.
I can be a functional human being. But outside of that, when I look at transferability, not just towards sport, I look at life. I now can go and play with my kids. I can walk up the stairs. I can do all these things. And the thing that hurts me the most, and this is why I focus on being so aerobic, is when I hear parents tell their kids they don't want to do it because they're tired.
Yeah.
Oh. That hurts me inside the most. Mm-hmm. When I sit there and your daughter or kid is like, hey, Dad, let's go play in the park. Or let's go run around. Let's go do this. I can't do that because I'm tired, or I'm tired. That is a fucking lame excuse. Mm-hmm. And you should be fixing that.
Right.
And then I will say that, right? Like, I'm sorry, but you should be fixing that. Unless you have some kind of disability and you're not able to do some kind of health wellness type thing, there's no excuse why you shouldn't go and play with your kid or do those things, right? And maybe that's just coming from me as a father, you know, of 2 girls and a third on her way, you know, and looking in that terms of like, hey, what is your real health and wellness, and what is your why, and why do you do that, right? Because that's what it comes down to. So how do I look at aerobic work and how does it transfer over to the athlete? Well, one, having a big aerobic base lets you build this foundation that you now can handle higher bouts of output longer, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, we see this in the gym all the time. Like endurance athletes will come in and they'll do a CrossFit workout and they're like, all right, that was great. Can we do more? Or we'll do.
I'm gonna make another workout.
Yeah, or we'll do, instead of like the strength that day, we'll have a high piece and then we'll have another piece.
Yeah.
And they're like they finish, they take a second and then they're ready to go again. Whereas you have people who come in with no aerobic base, they do that workout and they're on the fucking ground for an hour, like done, I can't breathe. That guy did everything, and then he ran 7 miles at night. And then he rode his bike, and then he went swimming. It's like,
yeah,
he can do more things, he can handle more volume, and then that means he can practice all those things too.
Exactly.
The guy laying on the floor is going to go home and be done for the day.
And not play with his kids.
And exactly, not play with his kids, right? And that's the thing behind that, right? Like, one thing I've always said, and I told myself, is like, I competed in CrossFit, like, I've done the OC throwdown, I've done those things, I injured myself.
RIP OC throwdown.
Oh, yeah, right? Like, I've done those things, I've competed at those levels. Weightlifting too, and one thing I realized was doing those things, I was so fixated on sport that I wasn't fixated on life and I wasn't able to live my life the way I want. Now, with this whole ultra running, living this whole lifestyle, I can do everything. And that's been the cool part about it, is like, oh, how about, and it's nothing crazy. I can take a CrossFitter and make them aerobic by slowing them down and making them not anaerobic or aerobic deficient, right? We just need to teach them. But the problem with that is people don't want to slow down and take the time to work on it, because it does take a little bit. I mean, how long we did a 6-week cycle of it, like of focusing on that specifically.
Oh yeah.
One, we got you out of pain.
Every morning.
Yeah, we got and he came to me in pain, back pain, and everything else. It took us 6 weeks. We got him out of pain. He was moving better. He was moving weights again. We were doing everything. We got to do the open. We qualified. He got ready for Granite Games. Like all those things. Like, and we're just using you as an example, but this goes for every athlete who understands the low aerobic training. For instance, yesterday I went to the pool and did a pool session with one of my buddies who's getting ready for selection. And another kid there, he's like, hey, I follow you on Instagram. And I was like, oh, cool, hey man, nice to meet you, whatever else. He's like, dude, thank you for telling me about the whole low heart rate training, because I've been implementing it now into everything I do, and my times and my training and my volume, I can handle things better. My breath hold's gotten better because he's training to become a SART for the military, which is a Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman, which is through the Marine Corps. And, they're very pool oriented,
right.
And he's like, yeah, I've seen that I can handle longer bouts of being underwater and doing those things. And I'll use example for yesterday. Yesterday was my first hypoxic underwater training day that I've done almost since last year,
right.
Maybe January timeframe. And went right back into it, no problems. None.
Yeah.
None at all.
I can do like one lap barely.
Yeah, dude.
About to drown.
We'll work on that, you know what I'm saying? But that's the cool thing about it. So going back and looking at this whole aerobic approach to the athlete, it doesn't need to be the mainstay of their training program, yes and no. Does it need to be the bulk of a training program, yes and no. Situation dictates is the way I like to say that. Situation dictates in terms of when we should be put it in. Should athletes be doing it more than high intensity work? 100%. And the way we do it, we tell people it softly, especially because I get this email, it's like, hey, I feel like complete shit today. I slept 6 hours. I didn't eat very well yesterday. I didn't hydrate very well yesterday. But my programming says to go and do A, B, C, and D, which is the high day, right? And the way I approach programming, this can answer your question, is if you've never heard of Charlie Francis, he's a famous sprint coach. And the way he used to break down his training days was high, medium, and low days. And that's how I approach training. Is realistically, most CrossFit athletes that walk into a gym should be dosed with either 1 to 2 high days a week.
Yeah.
And then everything else needs to be low and moderate, right? And the cool thing about that is you look at that 60% rule, right? Cool, let's go ahead and give them low, moderate days throughout the week. Let's go Monday, Tuesday, low, moderate, and then Wednesday's a high day, Thursday's a low day, and then Monday's a moderate day, and let's go ahead and do Saturday as a high day if we wanted to, right? Because Sunday will get rest, but then Monday will be a low day. Because they give me to understand that training is not put into a vacuum, right? Like there's a whole bunch of other stressors and everything that come involved in it. So if that athlete has a low day on Monday, but their life stress is high, well now that low training day is gonna balance it out a little bit. Now vice versa, if they come in and they had a high stress day on a Wednesday and they have a high training day, they need to lower that down to balance it out again. Again, our fitness regimens and training shouldn't be revolved around crushing ourselves, because then we're left with nothing. You know, like it's just kind of the idea that I look at in terms of when we look at training as a whole, not just for sport but for life. You know, and I say this all the time. I say this very humbly but very happy. You know, I look at athletes like Rachel Cerna and Kaylee Wagner who have got to train. Rachel doesn't compete no more. Mm-hmm. We took second in SoCal in the Open, and the year we went to we managed for the games. Like, she did really well there. She's done a whole bunch of other things in that time period. You know, she now just enjoys fitness.
Yeah,
she's not broken.
She has a kid.
And she has a kid. She's not broken. She's enjoying fitness, doing everything. Right? Same thing with Kaylee. Kaylee's doing everything. She used to be a CrossFitter, weightlifter. We've gone to national, done some really good things in the A session. You know, she continued. She just had life happen. She still enjoys fitness. You know, I have other athletes who have trained with me who are no longer with me who are just enjoying fitness and not trying to be competitive. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I know that I've done my job as a coach. Is right there. Is being like, cool, you're done being competitive. I've taught you already enough, or you've learned enough through this experience with me and your own to be able to understand what fitness is outside of competition.
Yep.
Right? Because if I told you you're no longer competing no more, you could go and still train for fitness right now if you needed to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just kind of the idea behind it. And that's the mindset that we need to shift. It's like, we don't need to train for sport. Our priority needs to be training for life. Sport is just
Just listen to this.
It's just like a sport is just a sprinkle to our life to keep us having goals outside of just our life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And
Absolutely.
I just realized that this past race.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that I'm getting, and you know, by the time it's come up, I was training for Tahoe 200 this year.
Yeah.
Which is a 200-mile race in the mountains of Tahoe. And it's a 100-hour time cap over 4 days with 40,000 feet of elevation gain.
How many rounds is it?
It's just one big 100-mile loop, or 200-mile loop. And the time cap is 100 hours. You get to sleep, you can do all those things, but the effort and time that put into that to train is going to take away from life.
Right.
And I currently have a 32-week-old girlfriend right now who's getting ready to put out my third kid, and we're going to go, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And the race, the 100-mile race, and I'm pretty sure people can create similarities here. Who's gone into a competition feeling like complete shit because outside life is fucking with them, and they just didn't figure it out yet?
Yeah.
I went into that having to run 100 miles.
Right.
The first 48 miles was a fucking kick in the face because I didn't realize why I was so stressed or what was causing me to like think this way.
Yeah.
And it was,
when you're by yourself for 50 miles, you're like, oh fuck, that's why I'm so stressed out.
Yeah, and like seeing her at aid station, seeing my buddies at aid station, it ended up leading me to understanding is like, I'm just the instinct as a man. I don't approve of me leaving for so long and not being with her. Like, again, that's just a reason, you know, to like, okay, cool. At the same time, I'm gonna be having to train like crazy coming up the next 6 weeks. The baby's supposed to be born by August, you know, whatever else, and then I have 6 weeks of postpartum and her and the baby. I'm supposed to train and get ready for this race in 6 weeks and run. You know, that wasn't fair to her, for the baby, or for me.
Right.
And in the past, I would put my family and everything else to the side and go and focus on that specific athletic endeavor.
Right.
And when I did that athletic endeavor and finish it, this family life and stuff was down here and it was crumbled. It left a bad taste in my mouth, and it left CrossFit a bad taste in my mouth. Same thing with weightlifting. It happened to me in weightlifting also, right? It left a bad taste in my mouth. I picked that athletic endeavor, like all that stuff, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. I've done that with coaching. It's left a bad I've had to fix those things.
Right.
This time now around, I was like,
how can I make this not happen?
Exactly, it's all patterns, right? How can I make this not happen?
Yeah.
And all of it had to attribute to the years of learning as an athlete, to living life through trial and error, to understanding like what I was going through, understanding that the time and effort that I'm putting into it, plus everything else that I've done to lead me to that point, right? Because I got done after the race, I hurt my calf a little bit. I was out for a couple of days. I couldn't walk, and it fucking frustrated me. Mm-hmm. I was like, my athletic endeavors shouldn't cripple me to where I can't live my life every day.
Right.
And the idea, and I took this from my buddy Trevor, I want to be an asset, not a liability. Not just to you, but to my family.
Right.
Right? And I'm going to say this, I don't know I'm not going to give a statistics, I don't know it, but majority of individuals are a liability to their family because of the fact that they don't look at their life as a full spectrum of health and wellness in terms of sleep, nutrition, fitness, stress management, all those things. Right? So when we go to look at it now, it's 360 degrees circumference. Like, that's it. That's all it is. I'm not trying to be here to be the best CrossFit coach. I'm not trying to sit here to be the best weightlifting coach. I'm not trying to be the best ultra running coach or endurance coach or anything like that. I want to be the best coach possible for that individual that comes to me to give them their best life that they can. Right? That's all I want to do. And that's realistically what it comes down to compared to back in the day where it used to be like, I want to be that top level CrossFit coach. who gives a fuck?
Right.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Nobody.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, as long as my athletes and what we're doing and building a good understanding of what health and wellness and fitness and performance is, I think we're doing our job.
I think it's just priorities, because everyone. It depends on what you want to do in life. Like, if you obviously you want to be a good father, so you decide like maybe the race is a great idea. You want to be a good coach and be a good role model to your athletes. So it's like, okay, hey guys, focus on all these different things and like longevity, durability. So it's like, whereas like some people come in like, you're gonna be the best fucking athlete ever. I'm gonna train you until you freaking die, and then it's like, but what's the point of that? Like, then all of a sudden now you're broken for the rest of your life, or you have to get a divorce because you spent all your time focusing on the gym. It's like, when you look back at it, what's gonna make you happier that you did good at regionals instead of making it to the games, but now you have a loving family that takes care of you, and then you can still work out and still do CrossFit. It's like, it blows my mind. People come to the gym now and they work out super hard, like, I want to be fit, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, why do you want to be fit? Well, it's kind of, I want to look good. Okay, well, I mean, that's a good reason, but like, really, what's the true meaning of like being fit? Like, I want to be fit because I want to be able to like, provide and like not be a piece of shit that can't pick up a heavy object in my house and like for my fiance. And
Help me move. Sorry,
yeah,
can't
and I want.
spray.
Yeah, exactly. And then like I want to also like be able to protect my fiance. It's like, I'm not the biggest of dudes, so I want to be fit and strong and healthy. Like, if shit ever hits the fan, it's like I'm able to do that.
But what you're doing though, and that's the cool thing, right? Is we're creating opportunities to be able to be successful in those things.
Exactly.
Right. That's all we're doing, right? Everything that we put ourselves and expose ourselves to creates opportunities. It's just on how we approach those opportunities and take them. Is it a positive or negative approach? Mm-hmm. And that is it. And the problem though is people don't like to look at those opportunities. They look at those opportunities as a struggle and as a challenge, and lead us to a place where it's not 100%.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to be fit so I can do hood rat shit, my friends.
That's it, right? Though, right? Like,
I want to go famous on the gram.
That's like that's another thing too. You know, like if you follow me on Instagram now, like you've noticed I started putting my own training program. That's my training program. That's what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I don't advise anybody else to follow it. If you want to do a workout off of it, cool. Like,
fun.
But there is. I'm telling you right now, what I'm doing right now is working on imbalances and strengths and deficiencies and also having fun. Right?
Focusing on your goals and priorities.
Yeah, and am I on a specific dedicated program right now? No, I just got off of one for the past 6 months. Mm-hmm. Like, why do I need to be on one? And that's okay to be also. I've had athletes do that too. Like, hey, I'm not gonna have an athlete right now. It's her birthday week, and she has a full week off, or she has 2 weeks off of no training right now because she's traveling. Oh, have fun. I don't need to worry about you. I need to put an athlete on pause because this is going on. Or we have athletes come over to Softly, and they're like, hey, I need to pause my membership for the next 2 months because I'm going to be in selection or do whatever else, and all of a sudden they come back to us, right? Like, that's the cool point about it, right? Is being okay with coming off these regimented style of programs, taking a break for a month or two, enjoying fitness in a smart way from what you learned, and then getting back into it. But the problem is, though, is the lack of understanding and education that is being put forth to those individuals. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I can sit here and show those things and teach those things. I have no problem doing it to individuals that want to, but those individuals who are stuck with, I just want to grind 24/7.
I want to do what Rich Fronings's doing.
Yeah, it's like, understand too, Rich Froning has a huge aerobic base. Mm-hmm. Like, that dude, like that, same thing, like, that's just what it is. But at the end of the day, though, like you said, man, like, let's just be an asset to those that we love around us. That's the goal. Right? And I'm not your average looking CrossFit coach or your whatever else. I'm a regular dude who just enjoys life. But
you're going to be happy you come 10, 20 years from now knowing everything you've done.
Exactly. Yeah, to where I'm at today, right? And like, have I lost athletes? Of course. Have I broke athletes? Fuck yes. I will tell you that. I have athletes, and I still talk to those athletes to this day, and I'm super grateful for them to be part of that journey to help me be who I am today, right? And it just happens, right? To learn how to work with athletes who are broken, come to me and do that. Like, that's one thing I say is, like, I fix athletes. I'm really good at fixing athletes. I'm really good at getting them to understand that. Mm. And it's just one of those things now, is those days, like, people want to be competitive CrossFit athletes in this sport. It takes 4 to 5 years to really be that competitive to do something. Unless you're some kind of phenomenon coming from a tier, like a Division I school, and have been CrossFitting at a younger life and have those skill sets and know what it feels like, then yeah, you'll get it. But it takes quite a fucking time to get there.
Especially marching man, dude. That's what got me.
Yeah, even if you are like a D1 athlete, like let's say you did football or whatever, and like you crush weightlifting, like you had a really good coach that had you move well. doesn't mean you're good at gymnastics.
No.
You're good at whatever it is. So.
And that's the thing though, man, is like with the sport of fitness, there's so many modalities that you have to excel in. Let's just be real. Like today into every day. In the past, like when I was competing back in 2012 and 13,
You got some holes.
you're gonna have some fucking huge holes and be fine.
Yeah.
But now you have some holes in there, bro. You're gonna get exposed. You noticed that. You guys noticed you had a hole and not be able to work with the worm. It crushed you. You guys would have done at least. I did the numbers or whatever else. If you guys would have taken at least 15th, you guys would have been right second place around there.
Which we took 13th the second time we saw the worm, so it definitely would have been doable.
Exactly right. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you can no longer have holes. And that wasn't even at the elite level RX. That like you guys were at the men's RX division, which is the step below
RX Plus.
RX Elite or whatever else, right? Which still says a lot. There was only 10 teams there, and then you guys were there. It's like, man, there's a lot of fucking holes. Like you can't have holes no more, right? You can't. Like you have, and if you're on a team, you as a team member can't have holes either, because guess what? You're going to be an outlier.
Yep.
Back in the day, you didn't have to worry about that. So
you could have some specialists.
You can have some specialists. Now you need to be able to run, swim, bike. You need to be able to do gymnastics. You need to be able to weightlift. You need to be able to do CrossFit really fucking good.
Yep.
Right? Like that is it. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, the aerobic stuff and everything else like that, like the aerobic work needs to be there. Let's just be real. Like the aerobic work needs to be there. And it's not just jumping on a bike or jumping into a workout doing 30, 45 minute hard ass workout where your heart rate's at 166 the whole time.
Yeah.
That's not aerobic work. Understanding aerobic work is with oxygen. That you should be able to take in as much oxygen during that effort to be able to
pace.
Talkable pace, whatever else. But the simple way I look at it is like you should be able to like just literally take in as much oxygen as you're moving through this. And that means that you shouldn't feel like you're suffocating. You shouldn't feel like this hurts. It should be a leisure stroll. That's all it should be. And if you have a heart rate monitor, even better, right? Like even better. Let's go and keep your heart rate below 140 today. Because guess what? That's zone 2 training, buddy. And guess what we're doing? We're just building that heart to just be as big and as strong as possible.
All the blood.
It's literally all it is, right? Like I mean, you're seeing your heart rate, your resting heart
It's
rate.
getting better. Slowly.
It's gone
It's just
down.
really fucking hard
Yeah.
to keep it that low.
Well, because he's always fucking stressed.
Well, yeah, and he's always stressed because outside life stuff.
Panic, dude. That's the truth.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But like but by adding in aerobic work at lower heart rates has been able to manage his effort, which has helped him be somewhat and keep him from being injured 24/7. You've known him longer than I have, and he used to.
I don't know, he's an injured piece of shit.
Yeah, and right now, like
120 pounds wet out of high school.
yeah, right now it's not like you're injured. You're just working through. We gotta fix them and balance it. That's all it really is, and it's okay to take 2 or 3 weeks to figure that out. Because in retrospect, think about that. Out of 10 years,
nothing.
All right, and that's where we're going to end this episode of the podcast. George had so much information to share and to give to us that we didn't expect the episode to go as long as it did, and we did bring a second battery over to record the episode with. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We got a lot more coming for you guys, especially with George as well, because he has so much more information to share. We want to share that with you guys as well. So if you'd like this episode, make sure you leave a comment down below letting us know and that you want to see more of George. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you guys in the next episode.